This episode of the Beauté by ABIC podcast was brought to you by Candela Medical. Hello and welcome to the Beauté by ABIC podcast, your online support community for the aesthetic and beauty industry. Here, we are strengthening and unifying the industry through representation, innovation, and education. This is a platform created and dedicated to the aesthetic and beauty industry, valuing unity and advancement. We serve to represent, support, and inspire you by connecting you with industry experts, expanding your knowledge through educational pieces, and bringing you the latest industry news. This is Beauté by ABIC. Today's podcast is hosted by Tamara Reid, who speaks with today's guest, Kirsten Cachia from Candela Medical. One question we often get asked by our community is what is the difference between laser and IPL, an often controversial and very opinion-heavy subject. Today, to help us sift through the answers and guide us to a conclusion is returning friend of the podcast, Kirsten Cachia from Candela Medical. Covering everything from the fundamentals of both devices, indications, hair removal, skin types, downtime and recovery, Kirsten provides an unbiased view on when you should be using which modality and why. An interesting subject that will educate you and your team on the topic of IPL versus laser. From Candela Medical, today we welcome Kirsten, their Clinical Operations Manager.
Kirsten, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you for having me as always. It's a pleasure chatting with you, Tamara.
I know, I'm really enjoying our frequent catch-ups now. Now that we're in the same state together, I think we're going to have to do them in person and have some coffee on the calls as well.
Yeah, sounds good.
So we are going to strip our conversation right back to basics today. We have had you on the podcast before, so our guests definitely know your career pathway. So we are going to jump straight into the conversation today. And I'm just going to ask you the most simple question, but one that I imagine many therapists struggle to articulate. What is the difference between laser and IPL?
Yes, it can be confusing, especially if you're new to light-based devices. Laser stands for light amplification by stimulated emissions of radiation. Laser is one wavelength of light. It is monochromatic, so that's one color. It's non-divergent, it's coherent, so it travels in one direction at the same time in waves that are identical, and it is very intense. IPL stands for intense pulse light. So IPL covers a band of wavelengths, anywhere between 400 and 1200 nanometers. IPL has many colors, it is divergent, it's non-coherent, and so therefore it is not intense. So if you think of a flashlight in comparison to a laser beam, that's what we're looking at. One is white light and one is similar to a laser beam. One will light up a room and the other will be a small spot on the wall. So that's the easiest way to explain the difference between the two.
Yes. Oh my goodness, that picture you've just really made me visualize that. So if you think about, like, I have a cat, as we all know, who's a crazy little thing. And sometimes we get a laser and we, flash it around the house and up the walls and things like that. And she runs and chases this little laser and it's the tiniest little light. But if I had a torch and did the same thing, it's such a wider kind of spectrum. And I guess when we're looking at laser targeting the skin or the hair, you've got a really, really direct target versus IPL. You've got a much broader bandwidth. So that just has painted a beautiful picture for me there.
Great.
So when we're talking about laser and IPL, are there some indications that one is better for than the other? For example, do you have any treatment ideas or any services that you think actually this one is more beneficial in this sense?
Look, yes, it is a personal thing, I must say. So I'm going to try and give you an answer that is not personal. So lasers and IPLs have come a long way, and they are both great in the aesthetic industry for many indications, as we both know. But what we need to understand, for somebody that doesn't know, what you need to understand is, first of all, the indication or the chromophore and the skin concern that you will be treating. You also need to understand the skin type of the person, and then you can choose either the laser or the IPL wavelength that is going to be suitable for that treatment. So to think of it in another way, wavelengths are attracted to specific endogenous or exogenous chromophores, either blood, melanin, water, tattoo, pigment. For instance, the Alexandrite 755 nanometer wavelength is very attracted to melanin, and so therefore it's widely used for hair reduction. You have very long thermal pulse durations, and then you have very short picosecond pulse durations, so we can use laser wavelengths for tattoo pigment as well as pigment in the skin. So depending on how you deliver that wavelength, we can treat a wide range of indications. On the other hand, a band width of IPL, say from 530 to 750 nanometers, will cover peaks of hemoglobin and melanin. So your IPL band of waves is attracted to both chromophores, and so therefore IPL is widely used and very successfully used in skin rejuvenation. So I don't think one is better than the other. One is just more suitable for different treatments and skin types of the customers. So laser is definitely better, well, obviously for tattoo removal. And I must say that it is, as I said, the Alexandrite 755 is well known as the most chosen laser wavelengths for hair reduction.
Interesting. It's I love the way that you've put that there. Yes, it is a personal preference, but a lot of the time there's an argument, laser versus IPL. And what you've so clearly drawn out there is look at the chromophore, look at the skin type, look at the client result that you're after, and then choose your device from there. And that just makes so much sense. Yeah, very cool. I'd like to zoom in on laser hair removal, or hair removal actually. When it comes to hair removal, which one do you choose over the other and why?
Okay, so laser and IPL hair removal is both based on the theory of selective photothermolysis. So we're using light, which is converted to heat, and it is the heat from those wavelengths that destroys the hair follicle. So in other words, we use the wavelengths that are attracted to melanin in the hair follicles. And once those photons of light have been absorbed by the hair and the stem cells in the surrounding follicle, the heat will partially destroy that target. So IPL applicators have a history of being broadband, which means they use a wide band of wavelengths. So some can incorporate many wavelengths, and therefore those applicators will make it unsafe for darker skins. Or you're going to need to turn the energy right down if you are treating darker skins with that applicator. If you're going to have IPL for hair reduction, always make sure that you choose a narrow band. So in other words, not a broadband type of IPL applicator. So the filters that they put into those applicators can block out those shorter wavelengths that are more aggressive on darker skin types, and another filter at the longer end so that water is not a chosen chromophore. And this will reduce the amount of erythema, it will be less painful, and it's going to be safer for the darker skin types. Laser, on the other hand, as we know, it's definitely the more popular choice for hair reduction. We know we have options for all skin types, such as the Alexandrite 755 and the Nd:YAG 1064 for the darker skin types. And we also know that the Alexandrite 755 nanometer wavelength is very successful in achieving great results. And we know it's reliable. We can give them a roundabout number of treatments, and we know that we're going to get an 80% reduction. The cooling options for laser are also definitely better. You have a choice of either air cooling or cryogen cooling, which can make the treatment virtually pain-free. You can do the treatment very quickly. We have devices that treat up to 3 pulses per second. On the other hand, IPL only has a chill tip, and being a white light, it's going to heat up very quickly. It can be painful, and it can be, in some circumstances, a slower treatment compared to laser.
After the break, first a word from today's beauty partner. And community, if you're wondering, apart from the incredible education provided like the knowledge shared in today's conversation, what sets Candela apart, it's their commitment. From the day you become a Candela customer, you experience a true partnership. With the purchase of a Candela device, you receive a 3-year service warranty, clinical training for you and your team, as well as access to their comprehensive marketing resources. Your success is their success. To find out more, visit www.candelamedical.com.au. And now, back to Kirsten.
I think you need to weigh up all of those things, and you also need to weigh up whether you want a platform that incorporates both laser and IPL or just IPL.
Yes, and it makes so much sense. I think if we go back to just the basic principle of how we achieve that hair reduction, it's through the heat destroying the hair follicle. So when you have something like a laser beam, it is so targeted that it makes sense that that heat is just going directly into the treatment area, versus when you have a large bandwidth, the heat is dispersed. So if you have a dispersed heat, you're not going to get that direct targeted result. And so that may mean more treatments or a less effective treatment solution.
Yep, correct.
And you mentioned there about different skin types. Is there a modality that you prefer for Fitzpatrick 345, for example?
As in laser or IPL?
Yeah. When you're treating, if you were to see a client on the higher Fitzpatrick scale, which one would you go for?
Okay, so IPL, if you're going to use IPL for hair reduction, you will need a narrowband technology. Now, I know because I work for Candela, I'm trying to be unbiased here, but we do have narrowband technology on our Nautilus platform. The Nautilus platform has 8 IPL applicators, and for example, the ones for hair reduction, there is one with a waveband from 600 nanometers to 950, and that can treat skin types 1 to 4 successfully. The other applicator has a waveband from 645 to 950, and that one can treat skin types high 4 to 6 very successfully. So the IPL's applicators that we have can treat all Fitzpatrick skin types. We also have the GentleMax Pro with the 755 and the 1064 nanometer wavelengths for, all Fitzpatrick skin types as well. So really the choice is yours. If you want to go with laser or IPL, both are great options. Just depends on how much hair reduction you'll be doing and how many skin treatments you intend to do. I think if you were predominantly a hair reduction clinic, then you can't go past laser. It's safe, it's fast, it's pain-free, virtually pain-free. And of course, you have to consider the fact that you don't have to replace applicators. With IPL, you have a flash lamp inside each applicator, and those flash lamps, although are very good quality, they're not going to last forever. So with your IPL applicators, you have a certain amount of flashes, and once that flash lamp deteriorates, you're going to need to replace it. So that's another thing you need to think about with IPL versus laser for hair reduction.
Yeah, absolutely. And while you're on that note, I know one of the biggest questions in our community is around the color of hair when it comes to choosing whether to use an IPL or a laser. Some people say if you've got a red hair or a white hair, you should use X, whereas if you've got a dark hair, you should use Y. Can you bust this myth for us?
Yeah, yeah, sure. The color and the coarseness of the hair matters no matter which option you are using.
Mm.
The difference is that with laser, we also have the ability to change our spot sizes, change our pulse durations, increase our fluence, depending on how light the hair becomes over a course of treatment. We know that's going to happen. We know that the hair is going to become finer. So we teach everybody to be guided by the coarseness of your hair when you're adjusting your pulse duration, and be guided by the color of your hair when you're increasing or decreasing the fluence. So that's something that laser has all over IPLs. IPL will allow you to change parameters. However, you can't change the spot size. The spot size that you have is always going to be the same. And we also know that neither IPL or laser can treat white hairs or grey hairs because there's no pigment left. And as we said before, selective photothermolysis depends on a target. If there's no target, there's not going to be any destruction of hair follicles. And red hair is still going to be very hard to get a result with either option, because of the fact that red hair has pheomelanin, which is an orange type of pigment. And again, light is not attracted to that. So it's interesting how you get to a certain point with different types of hairs and different colors. If you were using IPL and you had a laser in the clinic, then you may want to swap over when you get to a certain stage.
Yeah, absolutely. You were mentioning before the cooling in terms of both devices. One, you've got that kind of cryogen. The other, you've got the cooling tip within the handpiece. I'm assuming that this kind of affects in terms of the downtime and recovery of the treatment. Is there much difference in that between either devices?
Look, during the treatment, pre-treatment and inter-treatment, yes, there is definitely going to be a bit of difference, as in pre-treatment, you still need to avoid sun exposure. That's the number one factor. You can't have a tan or anything like that. You can't, contrary to some beliefs, you cannot have a tan or any fake tan when you're using IPL or laser. During the treatment, the IPL is definitely going to be more painful. As we said earlier on, it's a broadband, it's white light, it's going to create a lot more erythema and so therefore more heat in the tissue. Post-treatment, if the treatment is done correctly, then the downtime should be pretty similar. Although IPL can create more heat during the treatment, there's always going to be certain people that are hypersensitive to both IPL and laser. These people have a very strong response to either modalities. They can experience welts, they can experience excessive erythema, and in which case they need really good post-care and they need lots of cooling and they need really good post-care advice. So as far as recovery goes, as long as you follow your clinician or your therapist's advice as far as the no tan 2 weeks before and the no sun exposure 2 weeks after, and you follow everything that you've been asked to do, then the recovery should be exactly the same.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you mentioned the pre and the post care. And as you were talking about that, I went back to 2 different treatments that I had. Both were for pigment removal. The first one was with an IPL. And I remember I was a beetroot for the rest of the day. I think I got the treatment at about 9 or 10 a.m. in the morning. I put on some mineral makeup afterwards because I had to go to work. And I was still a beetroot by the time that I left, versus when I had the laser pigment removal, I think the redness and erythema had subsided within about half an hour post-treatment. And you've just literally made me remember both of those treatments as you were talking there. And I can see how the pre and the post-care may not be different in terms of that downtime and recovery. However, the treatment is such a difference.
Yeah, I mean, look at the results that you would have you would have achieved. I'm sure you have your preference when it comes to pigmentation. and the type of results that you get.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of results, something that clients always ask is, well, which one is going to get me to the result faster in terms of treatment? Because we're all busy. Our clients want everything done yesterday. In your experience, have you noticed that one device is more efficient than the other?
When it comes to hair reduction, I think it definitely comes down to the wavelength, the hair type, and the hormones, in my experience. If you have the perfect combination of fair skin, dark hair, no interference from hormones, then you get a great result from laser, and you can get that result within from 6 to 8 treatments. So, really that's a no-brainer. With IPL for hair reduction, you can also get a great result, although I think I mentioned earlier, as the hair gets finer, and the results will take longer to get to the same point. So therefore, you're going to need more treatments. You possibly won't get the results that the laser will and can achieve. And that's just for hair reduction. On the other hand, I'm a lover of IPL for skin rejuvenation and pigmentation, rosacea, and those very fine little telangiectasias that you see on the cheeks and around the nose. I think IPL, being a band of light and being absorbed by the different types of pigment in the skin, you can use a wave band that is going to pick up on the pheomelanin, and you can use a wave band that will pick up on the eumelanin as well. So I don't think that laser can achieve what you can achieve with IPL when it comes to skin rejuvenation, for obvious reasons. One wavelength is only going to target a specific depth and a type of, or a specific color of pigment. So I think for hair reduction, laser, and for skin rejuvenation, IPL. That's my choice.
Amazing. And there are going to be so many conflicting opinions and thoughts and feelings and queries out there. And I would absolutely love to continue this conversation and open it up to our community. And for everybody who's listening, please come into our Facebook community and let us know what you think: IPL or laser, hair removal, rejuve. I want to know all of the thoughts. And Kirsten, thank you so much for coming and sharing yours with me today. I know sometimes it can be nerve-wracking putting your opinion out there on such a heated topic, no pun intended, but thank you so much for coming and having a chat with me today.
It's my pleasure.
You've reached the end of another episode of the Beauté by ABIC podcast, your online support community for the aesthetic and beauty industry. Thank you for listening, and until next time, stay connected.